Hey.
All right, it says we're live. I'm Geoff Grammer. I'm here with Sean Reider with the Albuquerque Journal, and we're giving this some live chat a try here. We're going to talk as we talk today. It is Monday, August 19th, and we're going to talk a little bit of Lobo football, obviously, but also some big news that happened over the weekend with UNM athletics. It somewhat affects Lobo football. It somewhat affects all the sports, obviously. But we're mainly here today to talk Lobo football because college football is finally here. We finally have a game week, and for Lobo athletics, the big topic, pretty much all the time, is when is football going to get right? The next guy up, the next man up, trying to get that job done is Bronco Mendenhall, and we are in game week. It is week 0 for the college football season, and one of the handful of teams playing this week is, and because they're one of the handful of teams, they get prime national broadcast, pretty good placement. It is the UNM Lobos. However, they are playing an FCS Power. That is not to in any way try and kind of lessen the expectations for Lobo fans or local readers. This is a legitimately true FCS national title contender in Montana State, and they will be favored, even though the game is here in Albuquerque. The Lobos are going to be the underdogs, not just by a few points either, not even by a touchdown. It is by anywhere from 9 to 10.5 points, about a point and a half swing, depending on where you see the line. So here we are. I will now introduce you to the young football colleague, football beat writing colleague, and I will also, before the end of this show, explain to you guys why his culinary experiences and preferences are a little bit questionable. Before I have you guys all start judging him for that kind of stuff like I already do, I will let him at least talk some football first. Sean, welcome to the first show of what is generically called right now Albuquerque Journal Sports Live.
Geoff, it is a pleasure to be on Albuquerque Journal Sports Live. That was one heck of a windup. I did not know how you were going to stick it, but that was a good landing. You did a good job.
It's almost like, well, never mind. We will get. I was going to make some jokes about the food. We obviously Sean and I just saw each other at the coaches' weekly teleconference just about 2 hours ago, an hour and a half ago, and I was going to continue some inside jokes there that nobody watching would have any idea what we're talking about, which is a theme of mine. A lot of people rarely know what I'm talking about, so let's just stick to football for now. Sean, this week, Montana State. Why should Lobo fans be optimistic? Why should Lobo fans be a little bit nervous? And what do you expect out of this week's game between the Lobos and Montana State?
Yeah, we can start on why they should be a little bit nervous. I think Montana State opened as a 4.5-point favorite about mid-July. That's when that line kind of came out. It's right around, or late July, I should say, right around Mountain West Media Days. 4.5-point favorite, and it has just gone up. I think they're at 10.5 per MGM, what I saw today. And it's like you said when you were doing the intro, Montana State is not just like a Tennessee Tech or a Maine, kind of the FCS teams that UNM has played over the last couple of years. They are a full-on, legitimate FCS power. They're the number 4 team in the country in the FCS preseason poll. They're really, really seasoned, really experienced. Their secondary, I think they're bringing back 7 of 8 guys that have seen significant playing time. They have an All-American defensive end, Brody Grebe, coming back. Grebe's really good. The other defensive end in their 4.25, Iden Jr., he's really good too. I believe they had 41, I think that's the number, 41 and a half sacks last year. Good defense. The offense isn't being called by, I think it was Taylor Housebrook, the old OC anymore, but really, really good. They were I think they averaged just under a shade under 40 points per game last year, 39.9, I think. They were one of the best rushing offenses in all of FCS football. And they're bringing back a really good quarterback in Tommy Mellott. Super dynamic. He can run it. He can throw it. He's pretty fast. And he can create a lot of big plays too. So really good. I guess in terms of the why Lobo fans should be optimistic, I think it's because I think you could find some optimism in the general tone that you've kind of gotten from Bronco Mendenhall and other position coaches and players as well. They feel like they're all in a good spot right now, and there's kind of a quiet confidence there. It's not really in your face or anything like that. And they're clearly not looking past Montana State whatsoever. So I think there is some optimism that can be kind of gleaned there. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. It's always tough. I mean, and coaches will admit this too. You don't know what team you're going to have or what team UNM is going to be until you you get out there and play real football. And this Saturday, that's the first opportunity to do so.
All right, I'm dropping in as you can see, those who are watching, either on the Journal's live YouTube account or here on X. I believe I only posted it to mine for now. We will certainly be able to post that to other X accounts in the future as we do these. But as you can see, I just posted on the screen there from Dave C. Goes by Lobo on X, the formerly known Bird app as Twitter, used to be known as Twitter, I guess. Saying let's sync their season in game one. So obviously a pro Lobo fan is watching. Dave, I'm glad you're here. I know you are very pro Lobo. I know you well on social media. And it's good to have some optimism. It is good that Lobo fans are excited about football again, because frankly, it's no secret. The elephant in the room of UNM athletics is that Lobo football has had a long time since fans have really been behind the program. Danny Gonzalez, obviously, for 3 years, tried to get things going and was as popular a local guy as you can be. Gung-ho. Nobody I know really disliked Danny, but couldn't really get things going. And you could tell that as far as support in the stands goes, you could see that as well. Even before him, Bob Davie did get the program to a couple bowl games. Attendance never really reflected a successful football program. I am curious, has there been enough done in your mind, Sean, to get fans excited about this team? I think Bronco is a guy that will not toot his own horn. He is not go stand on the street corners and scream out, come watch us. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. That is not who he is at all. Is that the right approach to this? Is it let's just be calm. Let's not oversell, because this is a program where fans feel the program has been oversold in the past. So I'm curious if you think this is the right approach to get fans excited the way that they have approached this season opener for Bronco Mendenhall.
Yeah, it's definitely a different approach, and it's kind of night and day from what Danny did. And I'm not saying that either approach is right or wrong and all of that, but I think there is something. I would love to hear, fans talk about this. I do think there is something to the fact that he isn't tooting his horn. He's been very upfront about, we want this to be a developmental program, especially in this transfer portal era and all that. We still want to do that. That's what we've done for years, and at BYU and Virginia. And that they want that to continue because they've been really successful with it. And that's not a tune I think you hear a lot of coaches that step into, new jobs and all that and take over new programs. It's not a tune I think you totally hear all the time these days. So I think there is something to that kind of, I mentioned it earlier, a little bit of the quiet confidence that's been kind of reflected by Bronco and by the players alike. He said during the presser today, he said, confident statement, we are going to get it right. And he's always had that tone, but he hasn't been, look, hey, you're going to want to be out there in the stands for Montana State because we're going to really shock the world or anything like that. Because, that's probably the right thing to say in all ways. They don't totally know what this team's going to be, but, they do have a ton of confidence that they're going to get it right and get the right outcomes over time.
We'll get into some stuff that came out of the news conference today here in just a minute. There's a question. It is a little early in the week, and we kind of, I guess, probably have to get back in the habit of checking these things. But do you have any idea so far on how ticket sales for Saturday are going? Or in the off season, did they talk much about whether season ticket sales were working well for the program or not?
This is a question I actually asked on Saturday, not to Bronco, but to another member of UNM's athletic department, and I did not have an answer yet. This is a story I am going to try and do this week. So, Brad, I will hopefully have a better answer for you in a nice, well-rounded article form.
I will say that there are tickets available. I think that's safe to say. They're not at that level yet where they're going to have to worry about that. But they only have 5 home games this year. That's kind of a big deal in a lot of ways, right? If you're just sort of playing the home versus road sort of scenario, and you win all your games at home, and you can be bowl eligible. Well, if college football is a 12-game season, you need to have 6 of those be home games, right? And it is pretty rare for a program to only have 6 games. I know New Mexico State down the road has had that issue in years past when they were an independent, but that's because it was so nearly impossible to survive and to schedule as an independent. And they had to have some seasons where they only had 5 games. It's really rare for an established group of 5 team, or certainly not a power conference team, but certainly a group of 5 level team to only have 5 home games at the FBS level. Do you have anything to say about the schedule and whether or not it's I thought it was interesting today. Bronco said he is a bit of an eternal optimist, I think, in some regards, because that's the way he wants a positive mindset approaching things. So he said there's some good to take from it, but there's also some bad to take from it. What can you say, and how can you speak to the 5 home game schedule that the Lobos have?
Yeah, and you just noted that you think he has that eternally optimistic quality and all that. I think he has that realistic quality as well, though. He's never minced words about how difficult the schedule is going to be. You're going up against the number 4 team in FCS, a team that absolutely is a national title contender in that division. You got to go on the road and play Arizona. You got to go on the road and play Auburn and all that. You do have the weird quirk of 3 bye weeks, which Bronco said that he's never had before, and they're going to try and find a way to make that helpful. I think it is particularly helpful. Year one, they've done a pretty impressive job, in my opinion, kind of restructuring this roster and kind of resetting certain parts and rebuilding a couple positions that lost a lot of guys. But your depth is never where you want it to be in that kind of week one. But that year one for when you're taking over a program. And so that's going to be a challenge, but the 3 bye weeks should definitely help there. I do think, I think, from what I know about the 13th game, the possibilities of adding one when because they have the road game at Hawaii, that Bronco kind of put a pause on those conversations when he came in, because he didn't really know what he was working with at that point and wanted to get a better idea. And it wasn't like they were ever going to just, add another FCS team to get a 6 home game. They wanted to be really intentional with it, and they didn't find the right opportunity at the right time. So I don't, I think it does stink a bit for fans. You do want to have those 6 home games and all that, and I think it stinks a little bit for the athletic department as well. But it's a pretty good home slate, and I think it is cool that you do have that they were selected to with the 7+1 scheduling agreement with the Pac-2. I think it is nice that they did get Washington State to come to University Stadium in that setup.
I want to point out that at today's weekly press conference, the first of the actual season, it isn't as though Bronco hasn't talked to media plenty since he's been hired. But I do want to point out that our young Sean Reider very much took the approach of, after a nice, peaceful 15 minutes or so of Bronco Mendenhall talking up the season and talking about his team and the season ahead, Sean Reider came off the top rope and said, "Hey, remember 2016 in Virginia?" I believe it was 2016. Correct me if I'm wrong. 2016 at Virginia when you lost to an FCS school in Richmond. Can you walk us through that professional low of yours and tell us what you learned about that horrible experience, Bronco? He may not have worded it quite like that, but Sean did ask. Look, Bronco has been through this before, where an FCS school has upset his team. The expectations aren't anywhere near the same right now. It wouldn't even be an upset if Montana State wins this week. But what did Bronco tell you? What did you learn from what he answered your question, or how he answered your question about losing to Richmond at Virginia, an ACC school?
It was funny. I need to post the video because I don't think he totally understood where I was going at first, and he kind of like winced a little bit on the podium, just like, "Oh man," like he audibly said, "Oh man."
I think he thought you were going where I was kind of setting it up there, and it wasn't really that bad.
No, it wasn't that bad, and that's something I've been meaning to ask him about for a good while, and today was the perfect day for it. Yeah, in 2016, he took over. He left BYU at the end of 2015 and ended up taking over at Virginia. And I've held for a while that the situation he kind of walked into at Virginia was honestly probably worse in terms of the roster and in terms of fan interest and all that. I think it's worse than what he walked into here. Not by a ton, but definitely a more adverse situation. And he said today that they were they had some confidence kind of going into that game because they had changed things. And when there's a lot of change and you adjust pretty well, you're going to have that sort of confidence. And he said once they're out for warm-ups, paraphrasing here, but he basically looked at his coaches and said, "Yeah, we got a problem. Like, this is like, our demeanors are way off. Like, these are guys that are kind of reverting to, these are guys that have been on this field before and warmed up before and haven't had a lot of confidence, and they're reverting back to where they have been the last couple of years. And that absolutely showed in the game. Richmond won 37-20. Bronco even said, when I mentioned the score, he said it felt way more lopsided than that. That was also the number 4 team in the country in FCS at that time. I think they made the quarterfinals or the semis in the FCS tournament that year after beating Virginia. But yeah, it was an interesting answer in the sense that, he felt that it identified, at least he calls it, one false floor in terms of where the team was, and it helped them find, 2 or 3 false floors as they were going on, because they were 2-10 that season. That's the only losing season he's ever had as a head coach. And he didn't mention it today, but I do think it ties in a little bit to a previous answer he gave at the end of spring practice, where he said that he felt that first year at Virginia, they had to spend so much time resetting the culture, because he said, he's been very blunt about that. What he walked into was a bad culture. Guys didn't want to play football. Guys didn't care about being there. Guys hadn't earned anything. And he said they spent so much time resetting the culture that they didn't do enough on-field stuff in terms of being able to play successful football. And he said that the year after that, they made sure they struck the right balance after resetting the culture to do more on-field stuff. And he said that they've been able to do as much on-field work as is helpful this year. So clearly, a lot of lessons learned from there. We'll have a more coherent story than me rambling about it right now.
Well, I thought the way he sort of wrapped it up was again optimism for Lobo fan, in that year 2, for those that, Sean alluded to the fact that they went 2-10 that season, the only losing season in Bronco Mendenhall's career. The following year, they didn't just get to 500; they got to a bowl game, and which is about 500 anyway in college football. But anyway, they got to a bowl game, and they he said they probably, I don't know if he said probably, but year 2 and that bowl game and their fans rushing the field because they were so bad the year before and the culture changed. And in year 2, just getting to 6 wins and getting to that bowl game and fans were rushing the field and going crazy. He said year 2 probably doesn't happen without Richmond kicking off that year 1 experience that he had at Virginia. So he is very much eyes wide open when it comes to what could happen this weekend, but also what it could mean. After the game, should the Lobos lose? Should the Lobos lose badly? When he starts potentially spinning it in a positive manner, that's who Bronco I think is. I think he is a very much believer and genuine in his sort of take the good out of everything sort of person who will try and build on it. But B, he's been through this before, and he's already laying the groundwork for. You do learn from every experience. Real quick, I want to get to depth chart here in 1 second. We do have one reader who's asking about the athletic director situation. We will get to that here in a moment. I will say, just for those kind of testing out or checking in on our live broadcast here, this is primarily going to be a football centric sort of situation where maybe we check in each week and sort of preview the game a little bit for that week for the Lobos. However, big news this weekend was Eddie Nunez did take the athletic director job at the University of Houston. I will get to that in a little bit. Spoiler alert is that right now there's not been a whole lot of change, but I will update you on what I do know and kind of what the things to look for over the next few days will be. So that's coming up here in a minute. Sean, the first official 2 Deep of the season comes out, and I think it's kind of almost a joke in some ways, the way college football depth charts have grown into sort of let's just make everybody happy because we don't want players getting mad and upset and get their feelings hurt. And the number of ors on depth charts, you don't see ors on NFL depth charts. You never used to see more than 1 or 2 ors on college football depth charts. And yet in the last 10 years and really in the last probably 3 or 4 years, the ors have just exploded on college football depth charts. And it's weird to me because college football coaches would never admit they're the type of guy or the type of coach, type of person that would be afraid of telling a kid how it is. And they're not just going to be honest with you. And yet they will not tell these backups that they're backups half the time in college football. And they put on a depth chart of offense and a depth chart of defense, they'll put sometimes a dozen or more ors just because they don't want to hurt the kids' feelings. Yet they know very well who they're going to start. That said, 1 or 2 oars, especially in week 1 in the season opener, should be expected. There are still some position battles that have not been determined. There are some position battles that over the first few games of the season, I think Bronco kind of alluded to about a third of the season, there's still a lot of evaluation going on. So some oars right now are acceptable. What do you think in terms of the number of oars that Bronco put on his initial depth chart, and what would you say stood out or jumped out to you about the depth chart? Any surprises to you about this too deep?
I'm glad you really took a stand against how modern depth charts are formatted.
Look, if there's one thing I will do, I will take a strong stand against modern depth chart and the use of oars. I'm anti-oar.
So to kind of lead off, this is a question I asked Bronco on Friday, the last time we talked to him before today. Hey, how many oars are going to be expected on the depth chart? And he kind of brought it up a little bit today. He said he really doesn't believe in it. He is on your side entirely, Geoff. He feels that
can't blame him. I'm a great person to be on the side of.
He feels that it's a silly thing for coaches to do. I think his exact words were, "I don't see it. The only time I'll put that down if it truly is an oar. And sometimes it's the easy default in game 1 to try to mask for your opponent, but I don't see that." So what we're getting, as I'm looking at this depth chart right now, should be genuinely how they feel. There are right now 7 oars that I see on the depth chart. Some of them are, 3 of them are like backup oars. So maybe you can go like 5.5 oars if you want to count those. I think the starting
depending on the rating system, the oar rating system.
I think the starting oars are what we really want to read into. And I think a couple of them are pretty interesting. They're not entirely shocking, but definitely interesting. At the buck spot, one of UNM's 2 linebacker positions, you got right now, you have Dimitri Johnson and Randolph Kapai. Dimitri's a guy that he transferred in from, I believe, Mount Sac before last season. Ended up playing a lot. Was pretty darn good linebacker last season. Randolph Kapai is a guy that transferred in from Nebraska over the summer. He was formerly the top recruit out of South Dakota, the entire state, the overall recruit, 4-star linebacker. Never played it down at Nebraska. Ended up here, and I guess I'm a little surprised that it is an oar. I kind of would have figured that he would have, just because Kapai missed a little bit of time. Actually, Dimitri missed some time too, honestly, during fall camp. I guess I'm a little surprised that it isn't a clear-cut Dimitri, and I asked Bronco about that today. But, yeah, he said what it boils down to there is just production. And Kapai is a guy that, we haven't been able to watch entire practices or entire scrimmages, but he's a guy that has produced, and he's played well. He really, really flies to the ball. Good body, good personality. So it's that's a weird thing to say. But, yeah, and yeah, no. So that's a little surprising. Right now at the X position, kind of the more outside spot for wide receivers, there's an oar between Nick Trujillo and Caleb Medford. I won't say that's entirely surprising either. Trujillo is a guy that this coaching staff really, really likes.
I was going to chime in there. I mean, Medford's a guy that I think a lot of people probably would have expected and maybe written in as the starter there outside the program. Obviously, we haven't seen enough of the practices, but Medford is a guy that I think fans probably expected to be a starter there. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely correct. But Trujillo is the guy that I think you're still going to see a good amount of Medford and Trujillo on the field at the same time.
That's more of a sign of Trujillo and their I guess liking of him as opposed to Medford maybe not living up to what fans might expect.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, Medford still gives you that really good deep threat. I mean, he's still quick in and out of cuts, which is tough to defend. I mean, he does a really good job with that. But I think it is more of a testament to, Trujillo's a guy that didn't catch a pass last year. The coaching staff before said, yeah, we got to figure out a way to use him. Never really figured out a way to do so. And I think that was more of a credit to the wide receiver room at that time. They were trying to make more things work with DJ Washington, who's now at FIU right now. Jeremiah Hickson was getting a lot of targets too. But Trujillo, I mean, he flashed hard this spring, and it's been more than a flash ever since. He's been pretty consistent. He's been pretty strong. You've seen him in a lot of different ways, both on the outside, going over the middle. Not a ton of slot stuff, but I mean, he's been good. And I definitely think if there's a guy to look out for and see how he's used kind of for these first couple weeks, it's definitely Nick Trujillo. He's got great speed as well. I think he's right there with Weissong in terms of being fastest receiver on the team. But he's right.
Yeah.
The other one, it always seemed like to me that over the last maybe 2.5 weeks of fall camp, that it always seemed to me that we were going to get this depth chart and that Eli Sanders was going to be the running back. They've always said that they wanted to use as many running backs as possible and, figure out ways to get them all on the field. It kind of felt down the stretch that when they line up for the first time, Eli Sanders is going to be in the backfield with Devin Dampier. I didn't know how the offensive coordinator, Jason Beck, he even kind of admitted yeah, there is a slight lean. Is it all the way? No, but Eli's doing a lot of good stuff to establish himself as a primary guy. What is a little surprising to me is that you have an or right now between Andrew Henry, who rushed for 350 yards last year, I think 3 TDs, I want to say. Dealt with an injury last year, but when he was back and when he did come back later in the year, it was pretty darn good. But also Nakari Rogers, a Campbell transfer. He's a guy that I was really interested in when he came in over the summer. And Rogers, didn't see a ton of him, at least in terms of the live reps that we saw early on in camp. And he was a guy I was looking to watch, and you kind of just saw more and more and more and more and more of him. Did I think it was going to be where he would be an or on the depth chart with a pretty key returner like Henry? No. So I think that's pretty interesting that he's being held in that regard right now.
Well, it does look like a 3-way or there, right? Like all 3 of those guys are 3-way. That they're not naming. Not only are they not naming a starter, they're actually all 3 of them. I guess it's the anti-quarterback, right? Like if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have one at the running back position. If you have one running back, you don't really have that position filled because you probably do need 2 or 3 at this point. In certainly in the NFL, there's not a whole lot of teams that are doing it one running back at a time anymore, and very few college football teams, even with the stars, will you not see at least the top backup, if not the top 2 backups, get quite a few touches now in modern college football.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did want to get to you mentioned the anti-quarterback. I did want to talk about the quarterbacks. We've known since week 1 of spring ball that Devin was going to be a starter. Not even week 1. We knew since the second practice that Devin
didn't surprise me, but I will tell you I am surprised by what you're about to say, and I'll admit it. I'll fess up to why I'm surprised. Go ahead.
Yeah, I am not super surprised, to be honest, just off of what I've seen. And Isaiah Chavez is listed as the backup. Isaiah Chavez, obviously, famous in these parts for what he did during the 2020 season. I can't really attest to the seasons in between. I wasn't here, and I honestly
you weren't here, and you weren't watching all the Lobo games during the COVID season when they had to leave the state of New Mexico to even play their season. And Isaiah Chavez, who was a walk-on 5th-string quarterback freshman at the time, gives Danny Gonzalez and the UNM Lobos, again, this is not exaggeration, he's a walk-on. He's a 5th-string quarterback. He leads them to their first win of the season during that COVID year where they had to play the entire season in Las Vegas because state health orders in the state of New Mexico did not allow for football teams, for any sports to participate or to play that year. So Isaiah Chavez on the Mountain West stream that night, I don't even think it was televised, if I remember correctly. It was just on the Mountain West Conference stream, leads him to a touchdown and starts doing his little 6 shooters and became a legend for, a little while here in Albuquerque, because he's a local product. He is a local boy that goes on to be the 5th-string walk-on quarterback and lead the Lobos to the first win of the Danny Gonzalez era. And the very next week, they get another win with him starting at quarterback. And not only did the legend grow, but over the next, he's a 5th-year guy now. So I would say over the next 3 or 4 years, really, it might have died down a little bit last year, but over the next several years, the number of people that write into the paper, get on social media, call into the sports shows, the number of people that say, "Where's Isaiah Chavez? Why is he not starting? Why is he not this or that?" It got to me to be to the point where obviously the kid is not good enough to play. They would play him if he was, and he must not be good enough to play. It was great what he did, but quit asking about him because Danny Gonzalez would have loved to have kept his job. And I promised you, if Isaiah Chavez was going to give them the best chance, that he would have been higher on the depth chart. I was convinced. So for me to see Isaiah Chavez right there, right now, a guy that doesn't go to practices, admitted, I have not seen him practice once. I'm surprised. So good for him, shutting a guy like me up, because the local guy is back as the number 2 on the depth chart now as a senior. So good for him. And I know you're not surprised, but good for Isaiah Chavez. Now, if Isaiah Chavez gets in the game, they might be in trouble because Devin Dampier's a stud.
Yeah. Once again, Geoff, really, you've done a great job bringing the passion today. You brought the fire to this setup today. No, it's like you said. I didn't get it's like you mentioned. It definitely died down to maybe its lowest level since Isaiah has been here in terms of the Isaiah Chavez. When's he going to play or where is he? You didn't get a ton of comments like that last year. And I think a lot of that is, all I've known, honestly, since I've been here and covering the team, which is kind of remarkable to think about considering the fact that they didn't have it for so long and they're still kind of new to it, is quarterback stability. You always knew that Dylan Hopkins was going to be the starter, and then he got banged up, and it's like, well, you got Devin coming from behind, and Devin's going to help out. It was that Fresno State game last year. Him and Dylan kind of went, worked on and off and all that. They didn't even know he was going to finish that game. But yeah, honestly, I'm not super shocked that he is the backup quarterback. He is certainly looked out of all the backups with James Lobstein, a JUCO transfer, Emory Floyd, College of the Canyons transfer. He has looked for sure the most steady. Again, we haven't seen a remarkable amount of live reps and all that. We haven't seen an uninterrupted scrimmage and stuff like that. But definitely, he was the steadiest. He was the most successful in terms of leading drives. He's still good on the run. He's not as sharp of a passer as Devin, but he from everything we have seen, we've seen legitimate competence. We've seen a lot of trust. And he's a guy that it's the offense is definitely more tailored to Devin's strengths and all that. But Isaiah can definitely do some stuff that Devin does and kind of replicate that in some ways. So Bronco mentioned last week that he thought that the competition at the backup quarterback spot could bleed into this week. I'm not just going to say I didn't totally believe him at that time, but I kind of felt that, okay, well, how much is, one more week or really even like 3 practices going to change in that and what they've all seen. And they kind of wrapped it up early. And Isaiah Chavez is the backup quarterback behind Devin.
All right. I'm going to give, again, we do have somebody here as a Bobcat fan listening in. We'll try and give you Bobcat fans as many of the secrets as we know as possible, so you guys will be well prepared for the game. Truth is, go over the basics. There are Lobo fans here, too, that don't know what to expect from Bronco. Do we know yet, as generic and vanilla as you want to be, do we know yet how you would describe what offense they're going to run? Do we know yet if they're going to run a traditional sort of Rocky Long coaching tree sort of defense? Is what Bronco's gonna do on both sides of the ball what he did at Virginia, what he did at BYU? Can you give a really vanilla answer as to what fans can expect in terms of just the X's and O's? Like, what kind of offense, what kind of defense are we going to see?
X's and O's, I'm going to hold back on the offense because I think anything I say off of what I've seen, like, again, I haven't seen the full picture all the way. We're going to see it for real on Saturday, and I don't want to be super misleading. You will see, I think you're going to see majority of the time 11 personnel. So that's 1 running back, 1 tight end, and all that. Yeah. We have seen we've seen some split back formations, though. So 21.
He's been not evasive, but he's been openly vague about his offense since his introductory press conference.
He's been vague about everything schematically, I would say. Not just the offense, definitely the defense.
Yeah, it's really weird. And in spring ball, they didn't want photo, they didn't want video, they didn't want any of that. Like it's been kind of impressive at how well they've done in terms of keeping things under wraps. Really, I don't think that means we're going to see just a hugely unique, gimmicky sort of offense that nobody saw coming. But I think intentionally vague is a good way to describe how he's been about what they're going to run on offense this year.
Potentially vague for sure, just across the board. Defense going into the spring, and a lot of what I saw, I thought reflected more of a 3-4, which is what he had done a lot at Virginia. He had done a lot at BYU after he came over and ended up, just because of personnel things and kind of things that they had going at BYU, kind of flipped it over to more of a 3-4 than the 3-3-5 that they ran to great success here at New Mexico when he was in DC. Right now, it's more of a 4-2-5. I honestly think you're going to see looks of both, and they've been vague, but Bronco has said, it could definitely change on a week-by-week basis what we end up lining up in. If we want to get the 11, you hear coaches talk about this a lot. You want to get the 11 best players that you got in the field at any one time. And it's clear that they like what they got coming in the secondary too, which is, not totally shocking, but given what they've added there. But, secondary wasn't the strength of the team last year for sure. And, I think that in terms of the best 11, I think that does shape up to be a 4-2-5. That's how the depth chart is kind of structured right now. And, I would expect that. But it's also, we'll see in terms of how they want to defend Montana State and what they do, because that's an offense that's really tough to defend. They do a lot of creative stuff.
All right, we're going to wrap up some football pre-game week stuff. I want to ask you what you know about Montana State. What are Lobo fans going to be able to what can they expect out of Montana State? Why should a Lobo fan who maybe doesn't follow college football all that closely, but why should anybody be scared or nervous about an FCS school coming to Albuquerque this week and playing the Lobos? Why in the world would an FCS school be a 9.5 point favorite? I will let you be the bearer of bad news here. They're pretty good.
Yeah, I think I'll start with what I didn't exactly ask Mendenhall that question today, but I think I'll start with kind of what he said. It's when you talk about them, you're not talking about them like a team. You're talking about them as a program, because he said that teams can come up and flash and then go right back down the next year. He said Montana State's definitely a program. They've proven that they are winners. They're consistent. They've proven that that they have strong identities on offense and defense. I'll kind of bleed into a little bit of a coach cliche here, honestly, in terms of talking about Montana State. And I know some people don't love to hear coaches say this, and sometimes I don't even love to hear coaches say this, but it's absolutely true. When you watch Montana State, I think if you're going to watch one game, I do recommend watching their North Dakota State game from the playoffs last year. You see a really tough, really physical, really legitimately well-coached football team. They're really, really tough. That's really impressive to me. They fly to the ball. They run a 4-2-5 as well. Offensively, heavy on RPOs, a lot of 11 personnel. They lost their tight end. I think it was 80 from last year. It was first team all conference, but they got a pretty good transfer, and I'm blanking on his name, coming back in there. Just a good, smart football team across the board. I'll have a longer story kind of detailing a lot of what they do in a definitely more coherent manner. But really impressive. And, if you have time this week, I do highly recommend throwing on some Montana State tape from last year, because they get after it. And, it's honestly, I don't know yet how come on, man. Coach Counter.
I did not see it coming from you. I thought well coached would have definitely been a Bronco thing, but no, yeah, the well coached counter for the season is we're on the board. It is college football season. We got our first well coached reference of the season, and Sean Reider is the culprit.
Yeah, I hate to be vanilla in that sense, but it's absolutely true. And it's simple, but it is definitely true. And So I look. Do I think 9.5 or 10.5? I see that's like what MGM had him at today, is the most accurate line. Not quite. And that's not quite me arguing in defense of UNM here and saying that they're way better and they're going to come out and shock anybody. I think it's because we don't totally know yet what team at the UNM is at this point. We have a solid idea, but it's like we said, they've been vague in a lot of ways. And it's like, Broncos admitted it. He says he doesn't know the line. He's probably the least informed Division I coach when it comes to outside noise and all that. And but he'll add right at the end too that he thinks that nobody else in the country has a better idea of this team's capabilities than him, and I think that's absolutely true, if also kind of a vanilla statement. So yeah, we'll see. I'm excited.
I was gonna say that as far as that betting line goes, I take it for what it's worth. I'm the guy that loses to his daughter flipping a coin every year in basketball, but 9.5 points is an awful lot of points for what the internal rumblings around this program is they know how much work they have to do at UNM. They know what this rebuild is going to be about, but they're also optimistic. And the FBS to FCS jump in terms of depth, maybe it doesn't bite you as much in a week 0 game or week 1 season opener, but there's a reason FBS and the increase in the number of scholarship players and stuff like that starts to, wear down an FCS school, that may not come into play in the first week of the season. But I do think that New Mexico, I'm not saying they're going to win. I don't know, probably, I don't know if I'm ready to predict a money line winner, if you will, but I will tell you, I would take the points. I think 9.5 at home in an opener with Bronco Mendenhall is probably enough points to take New Mexico, but I wouldn't be too optimistic about taking the money line and just an outright win there. I know plenty of Lobo fans will, so Vegas loves games like this because there are some fans you cannot convince. Anybody with that little FCS in front of their name are going to come to your school and your stadium and do what Montana State's probably going to do, which is be a very competitive, very tough program. Sean, anything else you want to wrap up with football and looking forward to this week? Also, now would be a good time to sort of plug what you got coming up on the the Writer's Block podcast this week. Probably more of the same, right? A little talking football.
Yeah, we will be back in studio, and we have I'll be back in studio tomorrow. Hopefully we'll have that out by Wednesday. I'm having Victor Flores, who's a Montana State beat writer. He does a tremendous job. I highly recommend reading some of his stuff if you want to learn more about Montana State. He does a really good job, and I'm excited to have him on. And beyond that, we're going to keep the position previews rolling. I'll have a story from Mendenhall's press conference today, and plenty more from the practice availabilities of the next 2 days. So excited to be in it. Busy time of year, but really happy to be back and going in the full swing of the season.
All right. We're going to transition just a little bit. If we do these throughout the season, which I think we will, we are probably going to keep them primarily to Lobo football and the game of the week and what we can do, what we can talk about in terms of the UNM centric stuff, right? The football game of the week. But there's big news this past weekend at UNM, and it is that Eddie Nunez, the 7-year athletic director at UNM, has taken the job at the University of Houston. He's moving on to the Big 12, and sort of what that means, what's next for UNM is sort of the big question. And I will say that while there isn't a big update per se right now, I will tell you this. I'm going to talk hopefully soon, hopefully maybe even today, with Garnett Stokes, the president of the University of New Mexico, and ask her how she plans to proceed with this. The ball is in her court, and then the Board of Regents, because of the level of job, the level of pay, frankly, the stakes of the position, the Board of Regents will certainly have to be involved to a certain extent for a hire like this. But ultimately, it's the president's job. The president can just go hire somebody if she so chooses. I don't know, though. She's been very active in the Mountain West Conference's board of directors, and I believe she's the chair this year of the Mountain West, or maybe it was last year, board of directors, which is the university presidents. She's been very involved in athletics and certainly can hold her own at the table when it comes to athletics. That said, I don't know how well prepared she would be in terms of knowing the national landscape for candidates for athletic directors. So I think she would probably lean on a search firm. I think there's a really good chance that in the next few days, the interim will be named. My suspicion would be that Dave Williams gets named interim. It's the logical interim is Dave Williams. But there's some things that go with the interim tag too. Some people will name someone an interim knowing they do not want the interim trying to get the job the whole time. So they will name an interim as somebody they know doesn't want the job ultimately. Some people take the approach, here's an audition. You are the interim because you're the next person in line. I don't know what Stokes' approach is with that. I do know that with interim coaches, sometimes people are surprised who the interim head coach of a basketball or a football team would be. Sometimes they pick an interim because they know that person will not be the coach. They don't want that person sort of taking it as an audition for the job. They want to keep the people in their roles as best they can. So I don't know where Stokes is going with the interim tag, but it'll be interesting because I think Dave Williams has some options. If he is not named interim, I mean, I don't know why he wouldn't follow Eddie to Houston if there's a possibility there. I think he would have an opportunity to do so. I think Dave Williams, as the number 2, the deputy athletic director at UNM, certainly has done enough to there's nothing on his resume that would tell you he can't do the UNM job. Now, he may not be the guy that UNM wants for this area or that area. Maybe they want more of a fundraiser. Maybe they want more of a marketing person. Maybe they want more of a football guy, because the no secret that the biggest box left unchecked on Eddie Nunez's resume, which I've admitted, I will be public with. He won me over, and I think he became a very good athletic director for the University of New Mexico. But I will tell you it's impossible to ignore that the biggest box left unchecked of the Eddie Nunez tenure at UNM is the fact that football didn't get right. And in 2024, if you're not right in football, in college athletics, you're really hurting your chances of the conference realignment landscape, all this reshuffling. You're hurting, and football did not get right under Eddie Nunez. That's not to say it got right under Paul Krebs, his predecessor. That's not to say it's ever been right at the University of New Mexico. He got patted on the back and applauded almost universally for his hiring of Bronco Mendenhall. When it came to coaching grades, he got good grades on that, but the guy hasn't coached the game yet. We don't know for sure what the Bronco Mendenhall era is really going to be at UNM. I do know that, knowing the finances and knowing what it takes for UNM athletics to really be an established power in the Mountain West, and maybe even one day make itself attractive enough to be in the next round of power conference conversations, because the TV market is a good one. There's a lot going for the University of New Mexico, except one huge thing, and that's that football right now is not filling its stadium. It would not bring anything to any conference that would frankly make them attractive for a power conference. So the next person may be somebody that has proven they can get football right. We'll see. Could this be a 1 week or 2 week process? It could. If they kind of have an idea of who they want, this could be a really quick turnaround on who the next AD is. It could also be, there are athletic director jobs sometimes that are open for 2 or 3 months. And there's not really a timetable like there is in a recruiting season for a basketball head coach, a football head coach. There aren't these calendar dates for athletic directors that really make a whole lot of sense. I would say the first week of the college football season is a very unideal time, but there's not really a calendar to follow in terms of when you need that next athletic director in place. So we'll see. I did ask at the weekly presser today, I did ask Bronco what role he would like to take. Remember, he came off the ranch to come coach at New Mexico, as he has said, because he believes in the leadership and he's aligned with the leadership at UNM. Well, one of those two key pieces of the leadership, there's the university president, Garnett Stokes, and there was athletic director Eddie Nunez. One of those leaders is now gone. So what does that mean for a guy like Bronco Mendenhall? What role does he want to take in the process for choosing the next athletic director? If the next athletic director comes in and doesn't like Bronco Mendenhall, that's going to be a rocky road, right? So Bronco was pretty open about it. He says you don't gain trust in leadership overnight. You don't gain trust just because you have a couple conversations. That said, he has gained trust pretty quickly in Garnett Stokes and her ability to lead, and said all the right things about the president. He said he does not want to be involved in picking the next athletic director. He will answer questions if they come to him. But we're in week 0, man. This is game week. It is now time for him to be a football coach and nothing else. I think for the most part, since he's been here, he's been pretty laser focused on football coach and nothing else. But now it's really time for him not to really get too deep in the weeds on anything else, like maybe sitting in on some interviews for the next athletic director or anything like that. So I do think UNM has some capable internal candidates that probably, I think it's safe to say, have earned some conversations. If they've earned formal interviews, I don't know, but I would say there are probably 2 or 3 internal candidates that deserve a fair, at-length discussion with Garnett Stokes about the job. I would say Jalen Dominguez, who has set records as a fundraiser for the Lobo Club, is one of them. Ed Manzanares is a guy who has been an athletic director at a Division II school in the past. He has a lot of experience. And certainly Dave Williams, who's been the number 2, is the most logical, probably, candidate to earn at least that first conversation. And then we see where it goes from there. I would also say it's probably unwise of Garnett Stokes not to at least open the door and do at least an initial cast the net as to who would be interested in the New Mexico job, because you never know. You might be surprised. And we'll see where it goes. Some schools have kind of gone the non-traditional route, not taken somebody from college athletics administration and tried some things like TV executives and sports executives and stuff like that, where they haven't come from the world of college athletics. And they're trying to look, if you're trying to get every penny out of every dollar you can get, it's all about the TV market. So why not maybe tap into somebody who's been a sports executive with one of the major networks or with ESPN or something like that. Some bold directors have sort of moved their way into the conversation of athletic directors. There's in the Mountain West alone, a guy who was running an NIL collective has already gotten an athletic director job up the road. So I do think that Kurt Roth, the guy who runs the NIL collective here in Albuquerque, will probably also be consulted in all of this. But we shall see. As far as what Eddie Nunez is leaving and sort of his legacy, people have sort of asked me about that. I will say I'm comfortable in saying this, even though I'm the guy that's sort of going to be doing the following the job search, right, and doing the next thing. So I want to keep some of it close to the vest, but I don't think it's deniable that the level of trust and suspicion, or lack of trust and suspicion, that was hanging over the athletic department when he was hired 7 years ago, when you had 2 pending felony investigations from within athletics, from former athletic department employees, kind of hanging over, creating this black cloud. One was his predecessor, the athletic director, had a pending felony case when he was hired. One was a former basketball staffer, had a pending felony case, embezzlement case, when he was hired. The state auditor was conducting audits, and they were being scrutinized to levels never before seen for an athletic department in New Mexico, really anywhere. And they, frankly, they earned it. They earned that scrutiny, and the level of trust was pretty low. It would be silly. It would be turning a blind eye. Maybe you don't want to give him all the credit, but I don't know why you wouldn't. Under Eddie Nunez, the trust is back. They have now set fundraising records for 4 years in a row with the Lobo Club. Their Saturday night Cherry and Silver Gala, the day it was announced he was leaving, they set a new record and broke $1 million in one night. In one night, they raised over $1 million in a state like New Mexico, a poor state like New Mexico. It's pretty remarkable to have that kind of fundraising in one night. So the donor trust, the alumni trust has certainly been regained under Eddie Nunez and the staff he's built. I think the camaraderie and the morale around the department, morale was pretty low too, frankly, when he took over. And I think morale is a lot better too. So a lot of pluses for Eddie, and one huge minus has to be that football still didn't get right. Maybe he set UNM down that correct path with this Bronco Mendenhall hire, which is something that we'll see this week. We get to start seeing this week whether or not that is the case. So I appreciate you, Sean, for coming on. Is there anything since I just rambled for 30-40 minutes straight about all this, is there anything you want to say or ask about the athletic director search, or kind of what's going on with that before we sign off here?
I'm always interested in different fan bases that I don't particularly know and how they react to certain news. I was very interested in what I saw of some of the Houston fan base's response when the news started leaking out. Thamel tweeted that out on Saturday. Like, okay, well, he didn't get football right at New Mexico, so why the heck are we hiring him? We need a guy that can get us right in the Big 12. We're fine on basketball. We don't need a basketball guy. What would you kind of say to that, considering that you spent way more time covering Eddie than I have, and you've had a way deeper relationship with Eddie and through covering him? What would you kind of say to a fan at Houston that kind of thinks like that? I know this is catered towards UNM fans, but I'm sure UNM fans just kind of see the same reaction. Maybe shook their head at that.
It's all the same conversation, really. I think that it's a fair question. It is the biggest. Again, like I'll keep saying, using the terminology the same, it's the biggest box left unchecked of his tenure was that he didn't get football right in an era where college football is driving the bus and then some in college athletics. So it's a fair question. But what I will say that Eddie Nunez did was he did the job of athletic director the way a lot of universities want their athletic director to do the job. He was involved in a lot of I guess NCAA committees and groups like that. He is the chair, not just a member. He's on the Division I council, but he's also the chair of the Division I men's oversight committee. We're talking conference expansion or tournament expansion to 68 teams, or from 68 to 90, whatever. All that stuff. Like, he's the chair of that committee. He has some influence in college athletics and has earned that respect in the industry. I think that's fair. I know our friends around the state have some mixed opinions on things. New Mexico State fans really hate Eddie Nunez, and a lot of UNM Lobo fans probably feel the same way about Mario, the athletic director down there. I think that's more rivalry talk. When you look at from a Google Earth perspective, way up, and you're just looking down at the landscape of college athletics, what you want athletic directors to do. Eddie did the job of athletic director the way a lot of universities want. He increased fundraising. He, for the most part, I'm trying to think, he, for the most part, didn't have a lot of black eyes on his tenure. He was awarded by the Mountain West. In terms of, when I say black eyes, I'm talking about in terms of on his watch, those 2 felony cases, which, by the way, both were found not guilty or both were acquitted. And in the past year, those cases have gone away, but they lasted 6 of his 7 years. There were felony cases pending. I don't think any athletes got in major trouble while he was the athletic director. I think the hires he made, you can evaluate the Danny Gonzalez one as a swing and a miss, but he was a popular local pick that at the time not a lot of people questioned. I think the Richard Pitino hire got them back to the NCAA tournament. So all those things, his relationship not only with the Board of Regents and the administrators around campus, but his relationship with Santa Fe. What I mean by that is the lawmakers around the state, and playing the game a little bit and knowing how to keep the governor happy, knowing how to keep lawmakers happy. He played the game the way I think a lot of universities want their athletic director to play it. What does that mean in the grand scheme of things? Still need to get football right, probably, right? And that's the biggest question mark. But I do think Houston fans that are worried about football have a right to be concerned about, well, what happened with football? Why couldn't he get it right? If you dig deep into the reality of New Mexico athletics, the funding is not anywhere close to the same, even as other Mountain West schools, let alone any school in the power conference. But even compared to Mountain West schools, UNM does not fund its football program very high. The same can be said for New Mexico State. The state, frankly, does not give a whole lot of money compared to other schools and state lawmakers out west. They're not giving their 2 main FBS level universities a whole lot of help in comparison. So that's worth looking at too. It's hard to get football right. Now, New Mexico State's been to back-to-back bowl games under even tighter restrictions, but it's hard to get football right when you just don't have the resources. And UNM has never been able to get over the resource hump when it comes to football, and that's a big part. Is it an excuse? Is it only an excuse, or is it a reality? It's possibly a little bit of both. But I would say Eddie has a tough road ahead of him at Houston, because they do have one of the lowest, if not the lowest, athletics budget in all Power 4 right now at the University of Houston. But basketball, he doesn't need to worry about. That's a ship that's sailed. It's taking care of itself right now. He is in the Big 12. He's going to have a whole lot more money to play with. But if he figures out at that level where there are Fortune 500 companies in the same city, there are probably more within a mile of wherever his office is going to be than there are in the entire state of New Mexico. And if he can tap into any of that corporate sponsorship, like he tried to do here at New Mexico, where they're one of the poor states in the country with not a lot of corporations to get donations from, I think they'll be good. But I also think he has not yet faced some of the challenges he's about to face, where at UNM, you can be leaving after 7 years and people say, man, that's a tough blow to be losing Eddie Nunez, even though football never got right. I guarantee you, if football's not that good in 7 years, he probably won't still be the athletic director at Houston. So he's kind of on the clock a lot more than he ever was here when it comes to football. So we'll see. I think he'll do the fundraising part right, which is solves a lot of problems. But we'll see if he gets football right. I will also have more coverage throughout the week on all that. What's up, Sean?
I will also add. I think in some ways we'll see. What happens with UNM search for an AD and all that. I don't think any athletic department in the athletic director in the country would be mad about inheriting a Bronco Mendenhall, and I don't think a whole lot of ads like Hetty would be mad about inheriting a Willie Fritz.
Yeah, that's true.
Willie Fritz was a pretty good hire. I think it's not quite as meticulous of a fit as like the kind of Bronco mold that's kind of taken hold here, but Willie Fritz is a guy that has gotten it going at literally every single place he's been, and that is FCS, D2, D3, D1. I mean, did amazing work at Tulane, and I think I think Houston was picked last in the Big 12 this season for football. But I think overall that's something to think about too. He is inheriting a pretty good ball coach and a guy that's done it in a lot of different places and done it with way less resources than he's going to have at Houston. So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I will sign off with this, Sean. I appreciate you doing this. We are going to start doing this a little more regular. I will give you more notice. This, frankly, was a test run. So we didn't give a whole lot of notice. Probably not a ton of viewers or anything like that, but we will hopefully build this up now that we have kind of given the test run, and I rambled on for over an hour about this. I do want to sign off and let the people who are still watching know that Sean Reider is a guy who's never had a grape and has never had hot fries. And those two things alone really make me suspicious of him in general. And that's why we were going to do this at the office in the same location. I've got a restraining order on him now. I do not want Sean around me. The guy has never had a grape, never had a blueberry. Don't know what to do with that.
Yeah, I mean, Geoff speaks the truth. I've never had a grape or a blueberry. Not a big fruit guy in general, but I love veggies. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. You always find a way to pull it out at the most unexpected juncture. I thought we were gonna
sign off
out real clean, and then, man, right there.
This dismount is going to be remarkable, because I want to also point out that you have gone blueberry picking. You have actually picked blueberries in your life and never once went, oh, let me try one of those. You've never picked a blueberry in your life, Sean.
I'm really, you're doing a great job alienating the audience away from me.
Yep.
In our private chat, we have a question. What will Sean eat first, a hot fry, a grape, or a blueberry? No comment. If all are in the same location at some point, I will probably have to at least try one. So.
All right. We will ask the listeners, viewers, whatever, however you are consuming this and hearing this and learning of this fact that Sean has never had hot fries, has never had a grape, and never had a blueberry. Should we, on camera, have him eat and consume all three at once? Should we maybe spread it out a little bit? Should we put a bet on it? Should we?
I've never seen La Bamba either, so we could have all three there. La Bamba playing in the back.
The thing actually was the real reason for the restraining order. I just don't trust him. I don't know what's going to happen when I'm around somebody who's not seen La Bamba. But anyway, we will make all these things happen as the season goes on, and I try and get young Sean. Yeah, well, we will. And I appreciate you guys for watching. Follow our coverage in Albuquerque Journal. ABQJournal.com is the website. Subscribe if you can. Help local journalism the best you can. It allows us to do silly stuff like this, even when you subscribe to our print or our digital product, and it does help. Local journalism is important. Montana State, New Mexico Lobo football game probably isn't getting covered a whole lot by the talking heads on ESPN and elsewhere, so you need local journalism if you're interested in topics like this. So again, do so if you can. It really does help out. And abqjournal.com/subscribe gets you right to our subscription page. Again, you could do the, if you want, you can do the print product. You can do the digital product. You can combine them both, and it would help out an awful lot. Also, you can follow me, just like my name says. I do spell both my names wrong. It is at Geoff Grammer on X, GeoffGrammer. Sean, on the other hand, has a unique handle on X, but you should give him a follow. He is the football beat writer for the Albuquerque Journal and will be all season. Certainly knows his stuff when it comes to football. Sean, what is your handle on X?
Lenawee Reider, Lenawee. That is derived from Lenawee County, Michigan. That is in southeast Michigan, and I lived there for a little bit.
Yeah, and he's never had a grape, this guy. Okay, appreciate you guys for watching. We'll be on again soon. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.